Utilities, average monthly use, 815 kilowatts. That brings us to the same amount of 2,000. It looks like we're going to be on par with that. Fuel oil, we about 2,000 gallons a year on average. The C&M Brown price that we're looking at is about $3.65 a gallon, and so based on that, it's a $955 increase. Total line for $7,300. Telephones and computer, slight increase there as well. Again, that's just based on the rates and so forth. This line, we also did a little bit of follow-up math on that. Last year, I think we were slightly under budget, as you can see by year-to-date spent. So something hadn't been accounted for on that. So water is quarterly, $66 a quarter, and that brings us to $264, which is a slight savings this year. Cleaning supplies left at $3,000. Paper towels, toilet paper, and such. We do have to wash their hands. Equipment supply. That's an increase of $2,500. Jim and I talked about this quite a bit. Replacement of tools, light bulbs, cutting edges for the plow trucks, some additional costs for some equipment and supplies needed for cemetery mowing and so forth. So he was requesting an extra $2,500 there just so he can continue some of the tool replacements and so forth. Things are just getting worn out, is what he explained. Clothing stayed the same at $4,000. That is now dictated by the collective bargaining agreement that they get so many T-shirts and a hat every year, as well as boots are included in that. And is there some
boot allowance?
Boot allowance, yeah. So they can purchase boots and then submit for reimbursement, if I remember correctly. So, road maintenance. We moved that to an even $40,000. Just to keep in mind, this is everything from washouts to, $40,000 will get us through the general maintenance stuff. But if there's a large washout or a large problem that comes up, then that's something that we would approach the selectmen about for asking for funds from fund balance to cover a major $100,000 repair. So this is for general potholes and that kind of stuff. So here's where it gets interesting. Salt. So salt sees an increase up to of $44,000, bringing the total line to $104,130. The reason for that is that the bid price for salt went from $57 a ton up to $80.10 per ton, and we're projecting an average use of 1,300 tons this year. So this combined with, if I may move to sand as well, sand this year was way more expensive at $7.50 a yard delivered compared to in years past around the $11.50 a yard. So what Jim and I talked about is that not necessarily going to a salt priority for the roads, but going more towards using more salt in our mix and so forth, because though it is more per ton, you use a lot less material and a lot less man hours and a lot less truck hours because it melts off faster and so forth. So that's why you're seeing some increase in the amount of tonnage for salt, but at the same time, the big increase is because of how much more it is per ton, and that is delivered as well. The winter sand, we did buy that locally this last year after going out to bid, but we weren't expecting, what was it, $6 more a yard, I think, than we expected. So Jim agrees that it looks like he's going to have about 2,000 yards left at the end of this year, and he likes to have 45 on hand. So, he's going to have 2,500 on hand. If we get another 2,000, he'll be in the ballpark of where he wants to be, and then we can, in between that and the salt, he feels he's going to be in a good place.
Adam, what's the situation on current amount of salt that we have after this season, or has it all been used up?
No, they get it delivered, about every other storm, right? You have to have it delivered, and it's, do you know the answer?
Yeah, we try to estimate how much we're gonna have left after a storm or two in advance, and then Jim will order based on that estimates.
Yep. Yeah, because we don't have a building large enough to put salt in. That only holds maybe like 2 truckloads.
You can fit 6 dump trailer loads in there.
Yeah.
It's tight, but you can get them.
Yeah,
So
so,
we're
That's
not in
about, that's about 40 yards a load, so you're looking at 240 yards.
So there's no way to stock up on the lower price the way we have the sand left over to carry.
right, because the salt has to be undercover, obviously, when it gets rained, but the sand can be outside. So gasoline, happy on that one a little bit. So gasoline, again, last year, if you remember correctly, it was $5.50 a gallon. This year we're using $4 a gallon for the gasoline being using $4 a gallon for gasoline based on the average we're getting, and that is $21.84 for the number of gallons used. So we're looking at $8,700, which is a $3,200 decrease. Diesel on the other as well. Diesel we use $5.50 a gallon through CM Brown. We're able to get it for $4.23 a gallon, and that's delivered and at the shop using an average of 10,000 gallons a year, which brings us to $42,300, which is a $12,000 decrease.
You get the bids on those already, Adam?
No, we reached out to CM Brown directly and asked for them to lock in for a price this year. Because when we put it out to bid last year, nobody would respond. I can't imagine why.
Adam, was that 10,000 gallons taking into account all departments, or was?
Just them. Yep, like fire separate. Yep. Street signs, $500 increase there. Again, that's just based on use, and that's replacing the little, the placard street signs, Smith Street, whatever. So, Jim actually blamed the code enforcement officer for ordering too many street signs on that one. So, radio supply stays the same, $500. Legal, we stayed the same at $500. Again, that line was put in there back when they started with the collective bargaining, negotiating with the union and so forth. I think it should be, there needs to be something there in case there's grievances or any of those kind of things, but so far, so you can see we haven't spent anything out of this.
Is that a rollover account if you don't use it?
Nope, it falls to the bottom line. Mowing, excuse me. So now, because last year, the purchase of that new Ford tractor that has a mower that can be used for roadside mowing, so we don't need to budget the $4,000 for that. They've been using the hell out of that tractor, so talking to Shane and Jim both, sounds like it's working out really good. You've been using it for doing sidewalks too, right?
Clean up the sidewalks, we use it in the town office quite a bit. That was a lifesaver when we were preparing to open up here, landscaping and.
Yeah, no, it's been good. That was, I think, a good purchase. A lot cheaper than one of those sidewalk machines. So training and conferences, this is
Again.
training and conferences, leaving that at $500 a year. Maintenance, equipment maintenance specifically. This is for highway and cemetery equipment. And this year, special attention for the loader repairs and repainting and repairs some of the dump bodies on the trucks. Jim was asking to bring this to $25,000 even, which is a $10,000 increase. He has some concerns. He just has some concerns based on the age of some of the equipment and wanting to keep things up to par. He also wants to be able to address some of the rust that's on some of the bodies and so forth and make sure that those things are squared away. So that's what brings us there. You can see we've already spent $18,700 this year out of our $14,300. So, building maintenance, $6,000, leaving that the same. Vehicle maintenance remaining the same at $35,000. He's been able to keep things pretty squared away there. Rental equipment, reduce that down to $4,000. One of the things that tractor is also doing for us is we don't need to rent a street sweeper, or not, right? A street sweeper kickoff.
Kickoff room, rotary room.
Yeah, not having to rent one of those because of this tractor. We just need to have a little bit of money aside in case we need to rent a bulldozer or a rolling machine, for paving. or a man lift, or, you know, whatever other random piece of equipment might be needed that we don't have. So that brings us to the end, which is again 864, 68, 39, 88, 4 for a total increase. And I'm sorry Jim couldn't be here tonight.
And under the highway department regular,
Yep.
it's only a 4.8% increase. Has the collective bargaining been done for this ensuing year?
Yes. Yeah, so these, yes, this is done for the year. They have,
That includes the COLA?
that includes their COLA. They negotiated their annual COLAs right at the beginning. And though it says 4.8, it's actually, if I remember right, I think it was 3%, if I remember right, that they negotiated for their yearly increases. This is 4.8 because you had changes in personnel and so forth. So some are different rates than they were when we got the start of this. So. I think if you're curious, in the CBA, it's right at the end of it is their pay scale. If you care to see this ugly thing.
Sorry.
Yep.
I was a little surprised. I looked at the other fire rescue, there was some difference.
Yep. Anybody else have any thoughts, concerns?
I got a line by line item of all the changes, Shane.
All of what?
He's saying you did a good job, right?
That's right.
Any questions?
All right. If everybody's good, then kick Shane loose, if that's all right.
Thank you, Shane.
You're welcome.
Make sure you tell Jim how you had to go to bat for him.
Yeah. Tell me, you might want to think twice when you come back.
That's right.
You need tomorrow off because it's so stressful.
That's right.
No, I'm good, I'm good. Good to see you.
So do we want to take care of Paul, the follow-up questions for the fire department real quick and get that out of the way?
Please.
Is that good? All right. Paul, come on up. So Paul actually did some research here. Well, first, before I pass this out, there was a question about workers' comp, and workers' comp including the new hours for the weekend. And no, it did not, when I ran those numbers. So for workers' comp, there needs to be, if those hours were added, there would need to be an additional $6,100 added to the workers' compensation line. I double-checked, everything else is included in that additional fire personnel line. So the 56,426 includes the man hours and the SSI and the Medicare, and then, so you get the picture.
What was the
So
figure again?
which line are you referring to, Adam, just so we're on the same
Oh,
page?
right.
Is it the 0106-20, the workers' comp?
Yep, workers' comp, if you do,
Because that right now is 76.95.
currently that's 70,695. Yep,
What's it gonna go to?
76.95 it'll go to.
currently it's 7695, and if we add those new hours, it would go up to 76,807. Am I not making any sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So Paul did these reports. I'll take one and pass it around, and then once every,
There might be two fire.
yep, they're all stapled
Oh,
together. Once everybody gets one, I'll let him explain if that worked for you, Paul.
So, I can't remember if it was Joe or Dana that asked about our busiest time of day or weekend or.
Yeah, you can blame me.
Okay, so I was able to work with the comm center in South Paris, who is our dispatch center, and coming up with some information for the last 3 years. And each one of those is highlighted to show our busiest time of day and the busiest day of week. So if you go through those, each one, there's a fire and an EMS one. And it's random, but depending on the year, we are busier Friday, Saturday, Sundays, on an average. So hopefully that answers your question that you had last week.
So, just so we get oriented,
Yep.
so page one, it looks like these totals
Yep, page one is a 3-year.
are 3-year totals.
Yep, and then after that, it's 2020, 21, 22, and then our current year.
And there's one report for EMS, and there's one report for fire.
And added to this, this is just the call volume that was dispatched to us.
Mhm.
This isn't us total response, because some calls we may have, we were busy and we gave it to Pace or Poland or Paris Fire or such. These were the actual calls dispatched to the town of Oxford.
But that doesn't, that's not like that's not the normal. It's normally you guys are the ones responding.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
99% of the time, yeah. But we always have that occasional, we'll get busy and have to give a call away.
The days that you're currently counting as weekend days versus the 5 days a week fully staffed, which 5 days are you?
Monday
currently
through
fully
Friday,
staffed?
we're staffed.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, we're staffed with 4 people, and on the weekends, only 2. And then at night, it's only 2. So we're looking at 2 more for the weekend, daytime. Which generally, projection and the trends are showing we're busier during the day than nights.
Yeah, because just looking at the data, I mean, it looks like Friday, Saturday seem to be
Correct.
really busy days, one of which you've already got covered, and Sunday kind of falls more in line, actually, similar to or less than the already staffed days. So along the lines of the point Henry raised last time is maybe a frame shift of coverage, or rather than, it doesn't look like Sunday necessarily needs 2 more full-time people for coverage compared to what's already there, so.
Right, and this is
One
not,
day.
this is not full-time, this is still staying per diem, so no benefits or anything.
Right. So that's what I'm wondering is, is it necessary really for 2 full-time people to be added to Saturday, Sunday, perhaps maybe just Saturday?
Well, to follow suit with this is, there's no more call force within the fire department. There's nobody coming back from home, leaving work to come help out or anything. This is why we're trying to add to our per diem staff for weekends. We've got the 2 people to handle a medical call, but there's nobody to handle a fire call on weekends.
So basically, you ask with these 2 additional staff members, you're looking not only cover the EMS, but also cover.
The EMS is already covered, but
You now need fire.
yes,
Yeah.
and then they can help out with EMS if, say, the first call they're transporting to Central Maine, there's still two people in town to cover the town for fire and EMS.
So you're basically now reliant on these per diem people,
Yep.
full-time, as opposed to.
Yeah, there is no call for us. We put out flyers in MMA and we might get 1 application, but with background checks, it doesn't work.
That's a nice way.
That's helpful, yeah. 'Cause I was unaware that
I even,
you're getting no help
I
from.
even tried asking your daughter.
Yeah.
Well,
She's out
she's busy
medically
too.
now.
Yeah, she's busy.
Indefinite.
So,
What are the hours that the fire,
It would be,
we're not talking rescue, you've already got rescue 7 days a week.
yep.
Correct.
So the hours that the fire people are there, it's a 12-hour shift.
Yes, 6 A to 6 P. And it'd be an additional 6 A to 6 P on
So-
Saturday, Sunday.
Not trying to tell you how to run your schedule, but
No, I-
predominantly your heavy call volume in fire is evenings. I mean, I
Right,
tried to
it's
cut it
hard to
in
build a
half.
schedule to say, okay, we're gonna put fire coverage on Tuesdays. And then all of a sudden, Saturday, would you know,
You don't know when the fire's
Right.
gonna be,
Right.
but, according to reports, I didn't do the math real quick, but the heavier numbers are, 3 o'clock on. There's some at noon on, but
Mhm.
there's not a whole lot at, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the morning.
And this was, probably bad terminology, but baby steps. And then in a couple of years, as the trends get higher, to add nighttime coverage for fire also. And hopefully by then, we've got the SECA grant, we can hire some full-time people.
So I think, if I may hazard a guess, I mean, one of the reasons that per diem firefighters are put on, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Paul or Scott or anybody, during the week, Monday through Friday, is because during the week, Monday through Friday is when everybody's at work. So if they don't have people in-house to provide the coverage, the likelihood of people being able to respond is pretty minimal, is that correct?
Because our per diem's already working full-time somewhere else, so
Right.
it's based on availability.
Are these actual fire,
We would try to make them cross-trained so they could do both as well.
are these actual fires that you reported, that you report to?
These
Or-
numbers?
Yeah, these numbers.
Yes.
In town.
And
He
so-
said, do these include
This
any
is
of the?
just Oxford Fire.
That
But
doesn't-
mutual aid.
Oh, and mutual aid?
Yeah.
Yes, this
It's
has
both.
mutual aid, yes.
Thank you.
These are all calls that Oxford Fire is the dispatch or Oxford Rescue is the
I was
dispatch.
just trying to get a.
Sorry.
to mutual.
But it's not just fires that fire department gets dispatched to. They get to traffic accidents.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's
lots
not
of
just
different
building
calls.
fires.
These are
we do-
all the calls that have been dispatched.
Right.
Thank you.
And occasionally the cat in the tree. It happens. I'll find
I
it.
know, I
I'll
know.
find it for you.
I know.
Do you have one?
No. Mine had to get the tree and stay there.
Shoot it.
No, you never shoot it. Wait for it to drop. God was smart enough to back down and pick it up.
So I think those are the points to follow up with fire. I know we had some other conversations about fire, but that was for future, future select board then and those kind of things. But
More of a capital improvement.
yeah. Was there any other? Are we good with Paul, or did you want to have further discussion on this while he's here?
Thank you,
I'm
Paul.
good.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
That didn't hurt too bad.
Now, probably have to have tomorrow off.
Yeah.
No, that was last week.
We good to have Ed step up and kick off there
Yeah.
with transfer.
Yeah.
All right. So, for the transfer station, a couple of new pieces of information along the way here with the transfer station, which I'll get into when we get to the tipping and hauling fees, and then also in double checking the calculations for regular payroll. I found there wasn't enough allowed for working around some of the holidays and so forth with the transfer station. So the number that you have in there right now is for a total budget of $158,973, and it needs to be increased by $64.21 in order to bring us up to what it'll cost in order to cover the hours, including some of the holiday hours, because they are open. They are not open on the holiday itself, but they do receive holiday pay. So just like the rest of them, so they'll be there on their scheduled days. So in order to cover that, so that brings the, I should have done that math, I'm gonna do it real quick. So that means the total for the budget line for payroll would be $165,394. that also has an effect on Social Security and Medicare. Social Security would increase by $398. I can do that real quick too, and that's so that brings that line to 11,122. Medicare increases by $93, which brings that to 2,601. So going back up to with payroll, this is putting in for the 5% COLA, just like we talked about with other departments, because they are not unionized. And overtime, we remain at the same. I mean, overtime is pretty minimal for the transfer station. A lot of times, Ed or something, we get stuck helping a customer or something at the end of the day, and you're there an extra half hour or something to that effect. So we left that in there as well. Part-time, again, this sees a $1,000 increase, and that's just, again, because of the minimum wage that increased up to $13.08, trying to make up the difference there. Social Security, Medicare, we just talked about that. Health insurance sees an increase of $3,174 for a total of $33,444. You have 2 employees who are enrolled, and then you have 1 for the buyout. That buyout rate of 135, that has been adopted across the board because that's what was negotiated for both of the collective bargaining agreements for the unions. So we increased it for all of the employees taking a buyout across the board so that they're even staying in there. So. Retirement, we have 1 enrolled. So based on payroll, it's an increase of $362, so $5,077. Workers' comp, that also needed to be adjusted based on the payroll that we spoke of up at the above. So that increases by $299. I don't know why I didn't do that. So that goes to $8,360. Electricity sees an increase of $400 to $3,600. Telephone remains the same, $1,500. Internet remains the same, $7,200. Propane, that got reduced down just $100, so we have a little bit on hand. They've got a couple of heat pumps now that they use, so their heat's provided by the heat pumps, and we don't really need the propane except for like in the extreme temperatures when they need a little supplemental there, which I think happened this year once or twice. Office supplies remains the same at $1,200. Forms, we did an increase of $200 there, bringing to $700. That's the cash and charge slips and window decals that they use. Equipment, this is the baling wire they need for the baler. It generally is only bought once every other year, if I remember correctly, and that's $1,500. Uniforms remains the same at $1,200. This covers boots, some clothing, gloves, safety vests, safety gear, PPE type of things that they need. Gasoline remains at $200. Again, that's for them. It's just used for like the lawn mowers and so forth. Diesel was last year $5.50 a gallon. They're using about 600 gallons. We've put it down to $4 a gallon for the C and Brown delivery cost, and that brings us to $2,400, which is a decrease of $735. Bulky waste, which is like your electronic waste, hazardous waste cleanup day, which is something that Ed was able to set up with that's through what, ADCOG or whatever. Yep, they've been able, so people can get rid of their like, you can
any type of hazardous chemicals, in other words, like cleaning products that you don't use anymore, pesticides, it all come back.
The nice thing is doing these hazardous waste days, it makes it so that it doesn't get sneakily thrown into the bulky waste or tossed on the side of the road, so it's a good thing. So that's why you do see a $750 increase, is partially because of that. So, and this is where it gets interesting. All right, tipping and hauling fees. So we just got new information from the company that we've been using Mid-Maine Waste and Almighty Waste. So, based on a projected 5-year contract, which I'll have to be bringing to the select board here in the near future, the projected rate would be $83 a ton, which is correct in here, but the hauling fee for the 100-yard can has increased from $3.30 to $3.50 per haul. So that means that instead of $139,813, the new total based on our projected hauls would be $141,893. Tire disposal, we leave that the same, take it in about the same amount, similar tonnage. Refrigerator disposal, we've left that at 1,000. Or refrigerator. Now demolition is falling under the same thing as the tipping and hauling fees. We've got the hauling fee increasing from $248 to $285, which takes us from $60,736 to a new total of $62,660. Membership dues remains the same, $250. Training and conferences remains the same at $500. That's professional development and so forth. Travel, we did go from $100 to $300. There's not a lot of travel that's used, but $100 doesn't cover a whole lot. So we, as you can see, we're a little over there already. Equipment. This is maintenance on the 2 loaders he has, the compact baler. The scale has a $700 a year certification. There's 2 trailers that also, those get inspected on an annual basis and also have maintenance. And so this is just, this was an increase of $1,500, bringing it to $15,000 even based on the age of some of the equipment and some projected maintenance. Building and grounds, this is for both the transfer station building and recycling building. Increase of $2,000, bringing it to $10,000 even. Some repairs need to be done to the front gate, and some paving repairs need to be done as well in front of the building. So those are the 2 items that are going to be focused on this year. Landfill, this is, and Ed can correct me if I'm wrong here, this remains the same at $18.90, but this is that MDEP requirement. You got to put that regrind stuff on top of the old landfill. I'm still not sure what that's supposed to do, but they say we have to do it. And then licensing fees, MDEP requires annual licensing fee for the facility, and that still remains the same at $700. So that brings us to the total. With those new items, I can total those up real quick what the total increase is. I don't know why I didn't do that math. I'll do that for you real quick. I don't know why none of you can do that in your head. So I did do a little bit of rounding, so I didn't have to do hard math. So that brings us to about $499,537 as a total for transfer station. I just want to throw out there with Ed in the transfer station. I think you guys are doing a hell of a job down there, keeping it clean, and I don't really get any complaints from the public, so. Knock on wood. Anybody have any questions for Ed?
So with this new contract, if the selectmen approve it, does it limit the amount of times they can increase that price for tipping hauling fees?
It locks us in for that $83. I believe there is some flexibility. There is some flexibility with the hauling fees. There's a fuel surcharge that's worked in there as well. that there could be increases there, so. But I can't go too hypothetical on it, so.
Is that a contractor price for the year, or is it just, they charge whatever they want when they want?
No, the 83 would be a contracted price, then that's gonna be going in front of the board soon, so I just used the figure from the contract, so.
They
all my
do for the
years.
hauling fees and stuff.
Well, the trucking fee is what's killing us.
Right.
Every time they come in and hook on that trailer, they decide what they want to charge us.
Yep.
And then you have to wait 2 or 3 days to get them hooked onto it, you know?
Yep.
They come when they want them.
Yep.
So they won't, in the 5-year contract, they won't give you a contracted price for the 5 years for the hauling?
Correct.
For hauling is a whole different company, that's all highway waste.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
They give you a
You have-
contract.
they won't give you a contract at all?
No. They like just some of the prices.
Is there anybody else out there that will give you a contract of
We
5
could,
years?
we could put it out to bid, but the problem is if it comes in and they decide they want to put it to us again, they're gonna have to price more. I mean, they've taken a big jump this year. I mean, it used to be 160, now it's 330 plus 10%.
Okay.
And I can understand the fuel, but I mean, it's just, you call to have a dumpster emptied, and it might be the next Wednesday before it comes in. You call on a Tuesday, and it could be the next Wednesday before they get there. You know, it's the only problem with it. I know there's been discussion in the past about getting our own truck, but will it pay off? No, I don't know. We have enough people that could drive it, within the highway department, and Millions licensed.
Thank you.
All set?
Everybody good with that?
I'll be back in the select board meeting.
Yeah. Let's keep it 20 minutes on. All right. All right, so I'll move on to the administrative budgets. I'll probably kick right off with the code enforcement budget. If that's okay with everybody. Excuse me. All right, so code enforcement, again, we go back to that 5% COLA increase we've discussed. So we see an increase in the payroll line to $60,934. That's a total increase of $24.15. The health officer stipend remains the same at $800. SSI sees an increase of $150. Medicare sees an increase of $35. Health insurance sees an increase of $252, bringing that to $13,170.
I'm sorry, Adam, which page are we on?
I'm sorry, code enforcement. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. What's the wrong tab? Thanks.
I'm with you on that one, Beth.
All right.
Just throw something at
I didn't want to ask the stupid question, but I figured it's
I was
better to know
waiting.
where we were.
me. Sorry. I'll try and do better next time. All right, retirement. We have one enrolled in code enforcement, and that's an increase of $381, and that's of course based on payroll. Workers' compensation does see a slight decrease based on the current rate, and that brings a $150 decrease this year, bringing it to $1,766. Telephone remains, that's a $25 a month cell phone stipend that's received by the code officer. That stays at $300. Gasoline, this is pretty minimal use. It's for the code enforcement truck out there. $750. We left that at the same. Professional, this is professional development certifications that the code officer is required to maintain annually in order to stay certified. That remains the same at $1,200. Mileage, we left the $50 in there, which is pretty minimal, because 99% of the time he's got the code enforcement truck to use, but in the off chance it's in the shop or something like that, we wanted something to fall back on. Vehicle, this is again for the code enforcement truck, which is the old pickup truck, maintenance, repairs, oil changes. We got $2,000 in there. And that brings us for a total for code enforcement services to $91,115, which is a $3,083 increase from last year. if we're good, I'll now switch to the admin budget, which is the next one. All right. So under administration, the regular payroll line, that includes pretty much everybody in this building, myself included. You see, using that 5% increase, you see an increase of $23,302, bringing the total payroll to $367.21. You'll notice that it's different. It's not 5%. The change is in 5%, but that's because we've had some changes of personnel, in this building and stuff over the years. Overtime left remains the same at 1,000. It's pretty minimal overtime that we would see in this building. Election workers, we got 5 ballot clerks per election. We got the minimum wage rate in there, and we also have the moderator, who I'm hoping to con into being the moderator again this year. So we get $1,000 for that. Social Security, based on the above payroll, sees an increase of $1,507, bringing that to $22,910. Medicare, again based on payroll, increase of $352, bringing to $53.58. Health insurance does see a decrease based on current enrollment, bringing that down to $82,836, as a decrease of $5,900. Retirement, based on current enrollment, again sees a decrease of $3,000, bringing it to $23,875. Workers' compensation sees a decrease of $49, bringing it to $14.78. I'm confused as to why the manager's rate is higher than the rest, but maybe they think they have a heart attack or something. I don't know. Electricity, that sees a slight increase of $743. Bringing it to $75.43 total. Fuel, this is fuel oil. This has been zeroed out because this new building does not use, it doesn't use fuel oil, it uses propane. So, pretty excited about that. Propane, on the other hand, did see, we didn't have it before, so that's set at $12,000 based on our projected usage and what we're seeing. We do, the tanks out there that are underground belong to AmeriGas, and that's just the way that it was when we bought the building, so we're locked into having to get them filled by AmeriGas because that's who owns the tanks. So based on that, their rate that they're projecting this, or we're locking in with, is $2.10 per gallon for propane. So it is a $4,000 savings over heating fuel from last year, which is exciting. Telephone, the phone lines that we have here, as well as a town manager, a cell phone reimbursement of $25, or stipend, of $25 a month. Telephone is decreasing by $23.76 down to $18.24. Internet is $150 a month, which remains the same at $1,800. Water sees a $28 increase to $292 total. Office supplies remains the same at $10,000. Postage, we did do a slight increase of $1,000 there. It's costing 7 cents per mailing more than it was last year. Legal notices, just based on what we've seen over this last year for trend, the trending of what we're doing, we decreased that down to $4,000. Forms, which is like your tax bills, your W-2s, 1099s, and so forth, will remain the same at $1,500. Election supplies remain the same at $25. Equipment supplies remains the same at $1,000. Town report, based on, we called over and talked to the folks down the road here, estimating about $270 per book and about 500 books, brings it to $1,350, so it's a $350 increase. Filing fees, liens, and foreclosures remains the same at $9,000. This is assessing and tax maps. So I'm going to be talking to the selectmen when we talk about capital items, about GIS mapping and so forth. But I've included $3,000 for the annual for doing tax maps, because we do need to update those, as well as $20,000 for assessing services. But which brings us to 23,000, which is what it is right now. Computer maintenance and software, that does see an increase of 12, bringing it to 37,712. That's everything from Trio, our IT services that we use, our website maintenance, and our cemetery software, and so forth. Copier, we have three. We ended up going with 3 copiers in this building. It was cheaper to purchase or lease 2 black and white copiers than it was to continue to run those desktop printers like you buy at Staples or something. I was beside myself. So we have 3 from Rico in this building, and so we see an increase of $3,000 in order to run all 3 of our copiers and so forth, bringing it to 6,000 even. But the thing that we've been able to do is we can do a lot more of our own printing for things, and a lot more of our own, like we were able to create our own book, not have to bring them somewhere and do that, so it's good. Elevator, we don't have one. Very excited, so that's zeroed out. And if anybody wants to know in this room, that elevator was a pain in the you-know-what, and I don't miss it one bit. So, 12,000 for auditing remains the same. Legal remains the same at 20,000. Postage meter, it's 144 quarterly for the lease. So based on that, it's $650. Last year there was an error. It was I did the error. I did 144 a month, but it's actually quarterly. So that's a $1,000 decrease there. Dues. This goes up by $231. That's $12,731. This is everything from our MMA membership, along with AVCOG, Oxford Chambers. AVCOG and MMA membership, I did include some information about that if you want to see what some of the benefits of belonging to those is. AVCOG is salt bids. That's one of the big benefits we get from them too. Training and conferences goes up by $200, brought it up to $2,000. Again, I know that some of the staff, there's some classes that they've been asking for this coming year, for professional development and stuff. Mileage remains the same at $100. Again, we have town vehicles, and the general policy in this building is that if a town vehicle is available, that's what you need to use. If you need to run to the run to the bank or do town business, if it happens to not be available, then fine, use your own personal vehicle. But the priority needs to be using a town vehicle. Manager expense line remains the same at $500. Building and grounds, it sees a decrease of $3,000. A lot of that, frankly, is based on the fact that we're in this building and not in the old building, projecting maintenance costs to be significantly less. Vehicle, the only vehicle that we have here other than the pickup truck for codes is that leased Hyundai Kona, that electric car, and that's just been pretty minimal. So we left it at $500 for any incidentals. So that brings us to a total administrative budget of $691,981, which is an $84.39 increase, $8,439.
Adam, can I ask you a quick question about that copier?
Yeah.
Does the rental include supplies like toner, or is that separate?
Yep, no, that does. So it's broken into two different pieces. One is the actual lease, and then the other is the maintenance copies and supplies and all that kind of stuff. So.
Okay, so does that decrease your office supplies at all if you're not buying toner and stuff for your desktop printers, or does it kind of wash out?
I left it as a washout because I frankly just wanted to see what was going to happen over the course of the next year before I started really.
Yeah.
My hope is that we're just not going to be buying more of those cheesy printers too. So I did include some of the Rico stuff in here.
So for next year then, I would assume then the fuel oil and the elevator lines would be taken off.
Correct. I left them in there because if I deleted them, it was going to mess up last year's total.
Right.
And
Carried through for this year till you moved over.
yep.
Yeah. And just thinking out loud with regard to the propane, understanding they've got the gas tanks underground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I don't run propane all that often, what the going rate is. But I would suspect that unless there's some building code that I don't know about, if it really got to the point that we were over a barrel with the rates that AmeriGas was charging, I don't know how large these things are, I would expect that it would be possible to get external tanks put in if that cost would be offset by a reduction in propane price from the provider.
So I did do some asking about that. We could purchase our own tanks. It's I believe it's two 1,000 gallon tanks that are underground here. So we have 2,000 capacity, and we could purchase our own tanks and put them out there. And I believe we could just put them above ground if we wanted to. We wouldn't have to bury them. So
Why would you want them above ground?
if you're trying to be cheap, that's,
I'm
you
just
know.
saying, since these are underground and they're owned by AmeriGas, so you're tied into them as your supplier
But you could purchase them, couldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
from AmeriGas,
Hmm.
and would another company
Oh.
service them and fill them, or is?
Yeah, we can purchase our own tanks. I did not ask AmeriGas because we could purchase their tanks, but I mean, I'm sure that I don't know why they wouldn't let us buy them.
I mean, I put in one at my place and I bought it, saves quite a lot of gallons. I mean, you'd use a lot more than I would at a residence, so if you own your tank, part of the deal is they charge you, and I might be off the wall, but I want to say it's like 30, 40 cents a gallon because you're using their tank.
Like tank maintenance, if you will, or whatever, lease.
Whatever the deal is.
I'm just putting out there, because I think that would come from the select board to you, but it's just a thought that
I'd be lying to you if I told you.
rather than feeling that we're necessarily beholden
I think
to
that's
that
reasonable.
company at their
Yeah.
prices, there may be some workarounds, like.
I'll ask them about buying out the tanks or whatever, so that we could own them.
But I mean, I don't think that price is ridiculous, you get that.
Right.
No.
I think you're gonna run into, if we own the tanks, they must have to pay for inspections and maintenance on the tank if they own them.
Yep,
Assuming.
that's my understanding,
The
yep.
town owns them, then we pick up that
It may be
cost.
cheap insurance to let them know.
And in the end, it probably doesn't save a whole lot.
Yeah, the only thing it does is then we can go to whatever supplier we want, but as long as they own the tanks, then we gotta buy it from them, so.
If they own the tanks, then if the tanks start leaking, that's their problem, correct?
Correct.
It's a cheap insurance if it's pennies on a gallon.
Yeah, I think if you check that, that probably is the best price. You can get a chocolate for it, right?
Might just give them to you.
Yeah.
Maybe
That would be,
a-
isn't very good.
Well, when they get to be a certain age, I don't know how old goes on.
How old's the building?
It was built in the mid-90s, and then it was renovated in the 2000s. So those are not the original tanks. There's a date on them, and they're not 30 years old or anything. So. Anybody else have any thoughts on admin, or do you want me to keep on chugging here? 'Cause I think what we could do. All right, we have code enforcement. So, let's see here. Municipal is where I was gonna hit. There's a couple pieces in municipal that we can hammer out. I was thinking municipal and debt service are the two that we could probably get to if you guys are good for it. So municipal, the first thing there is insurance. This is our liability insurance. 89,000 is this year's amount for liability insurance, which is an 11,685 increase. Feeling and smelling that coming down the pipe, I reached out to Maine Municipal Insurance, and this is the quote that they've provided us, contracting with them. Our current insurance provider that we were using, that was a local company, actually quoted us a price of $104,000 for this year. So MMA was the clear better option. price-wise. But MMA also frankly offers a lot more coverage and it's tailored to municipal government. So it's not only savings, but just better coverage all the way around. So I'm sad to see this $11,000 increase, but at the same time, we did have some losses this last year with, the old building had a lot of broken pipes. We had a lot of that kind of stuff that went on this last year, so. Library, I have scheduled the librarian to come on March 23rd, which is when the schedule says we've got third-party requests as well. As a that's $75,000, but I'll let her just speak to that. Third-party request, March 23rd. Animal shelter fee, we've got a $1,269 increase, bringing that to $66.32. I put the math in there for my own selfish reasons, but it's $1.45 per capita based on the last census of 4229. So that also includes some money to handle strays. Electricity, this is for the street lights, the traffic light, and so forth, and that brings it to $21.20, which is an $80 increase. Street light maintenance, we left the same at $4,000. And then water, this is the quarterly charges for the hydrants, remains the same at $63,100. So that brings us to a new total of $69,220. Any thoughts, concerns on these items?
What are the charges? I don't understand the quarterly charges for hydrants. Is that maintenance, rental, water?
Water. That's what it is, just water. So it's no different than like the quarterly water charges for here or what have you. So and it's a set rate.
That's to make up the difference of what the people that use water don't make up. The town picks up the balance. They call it hydrant.
Because I'm like, that would seem like a lot of water.
It's the availability, and what is it, 4-inch lines or something that go to these? Do the hydrants fall? Do you know off the top of your head?
Very for sections.
I thought that usually didn't show.
Yeah. I just probably don't understand it, but someone else.
But you can, I mean, that's just the charge to have water to go to them.
Yes, correct.
The town owns the hydrants.
No.
Water
district does.
They own hydrants.
Yes.
We pay them to have.
A lot of places call it rental.
Even if you don't take a drop of water out.
Correct.
That's right.
That's what I was asking. So this fee, that's not one drop comes out of a hydrant, we're still on the hook for that.
Right.
That's just to get the water to the hydrant.
Right.
But if we use 1 million gallons, it stays the same too. So.
Open them up.
I usually do.
Yeah.
I think we should start a business that like filling people's swimming pools out of the hydrants and charge them and no one.
As an example, back years, I was on the budget committee, I used to fight this every time. I said, why are we balancing the water district's budget? Never can get a straight answer. But that's how it was set up with the state of Maine when the water district was formed.
So if people are good on the municipal.
I just have a
Oh,
quick
I'm
question,
sorry.
and it's really just more for information. I see that you have a traffic light here, but you also have a traffic light in the admin budget. I'm just wondering why they're in different places.
Under the admin budget?
Yeah.
Well, let me see if I.
Under electricity. Is that, or is that not a traffic
Casino light.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
And
not the
this is
traffic
the
light?
north end. Yeah. I don't, you bring that up, it doesn't really make a lot of sense that they're in two different places, but they are two different lights. Okay, where it's 6 on the nose, do we want to save debt service for the next time so we can get into selectmen's business, or?
Move that we adjourn, budget committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
That answer your question, Adam?
Yes, it does. That answers the I don't want to listen to you talk anymore question.
Oh, no, we're gonna turn you over to the selectmen now.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
I did.
You did, John?
I did.
Okay.
Sitting right next to you.
I know you have to tap it. Okay. I'll still on the light. Thank you, everybody.
You guys don't have to go, you could hang out. And. You have to stay. I'm moving on to the next paper. We haven't done
Yeah.
Sharon's about to start.
Plug and play.
If you're going to take care of him first, that'd be great. I should have brought my glasses.
I'm going to call the Selectmen's meeting to order and have the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 2, action on the minutes.
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor? Thank you. Adjustments to the agenda.
I have nothing, ma'am.
Any public comments? Please
Yes.
state your name and the town that you were from for the record,
Okay.
please.
My name is Carol Kane. I am an Oxford resident. I have a couple of questions that I have been asked to attend this meeting for the CB in Norway. It has come to my attention that this Claire McGlinchey has tried to contact, not sure if it's you directly, Town Manager Adam, or it's any one of the board members, about trying to get some money from CB.
Can you tell us what CB is, please?
Center for Ecology-Based Economy.
Okay, thanks.
They deal with trying to do grant money for the towns, specifically in the Oxford Hills community. I have some notes that I would like to share with you from Claire McGlinchey and South Paris. And they were at first hesitant, but selected a board and ended up really involved in the planning process. They're trying to get towns involved in, for instance, building more electric car chargers, finding money be given to the towns for heat pumps if needed in any of the municipal buildings. They are trying to do climate vulnerability infrastructures and establish, climate committees in the areas for the specific towns in Oxford Hills, especially Oxford Hills area. And what the town of South Paris so far has done, they had 2 projects. They installed solar panels on their roof of the police station, and they are conducting a feasibility study for the conversion of fire station into resilient emergency shelter powered by solar and battery chargers. The town of Otisfield, they received, and by the way, the town of South Paris received $41,695 grant money. The town of Otisfield, they received $40,480 for heat pumps installed in the town office. They're also updating their protected watershed booklet, and they're holding public awareness events that will continue ongoing. The town of Norway, they received $50,000 to conduct assessment of climate vulnerability, infrastructure, and population, and establish a climate committee. These projects, of course, cover a very wide range of, projects cover a very wide range. And they will ultimately save the town money. And so they're basically wondering why They've contacted you, Adam, I believe, and you've never gotten back to them. I have her telephone number, if you could possibly write it down. She would love to have a meeting with you and the Board of Selectmen to, if there's anything that you can think of, like especially electric charging stations, because there's more and more people buying electric cars, and there's no place, except for the casino, to my knowledge, in any of the surrounding areas. There's no electric chargers for EV cars. And the only other place is the high school. And my son installed that. My son is Sean Kane, and he installed the EV charger system at the high school. And so they're basically, they want to, involve the town of Oxford with other projects, whether it's building weatherizations, energy efficiency updates, and energy usage audits, whatever reason. And that's pretty much it. So actually, I said, as an Oxford resident, they asked me to come and speak because they both, my daughter-in-law, who works at CB, and Claire, of course, works in another town. And as an Oxford resident, I was asked to speak on behalf of them this evening.
Thank you.
There's a gentleman, Mr. Vaughn.
Yes, Scott Vaughn, yes.
Yep. We have communicated in the past. More follow-up needs to happen, so
Yes.
it sounds like. That is the bylaws, I might be getting the wrong term here, that we had talked about that one evening in the selectmen's meeting as well, just to put it in perspective too.
Yeah, and Claire's telephone number, if you'd like it, is.
Do you want to give that in a public meeting, or do you want to give it?
Sure, yeah, yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It's 739-2101, and I believe that is at the CB office where Scott Vaughn is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, business items, number 5. We are going to skip to 5.2 first to do the audit review with Auditor Ron Smith.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So you were going to print some off for the future when we finalize this and go over this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So, but I know you guys.
That's why we want to have you in front of us.
You guys are knee-deep in budget, so Adam wanted me to come here and just kind of like put the final touches on 2022 and talk about 2023. So, if you want to give a prelude, you want me to jump right in?
No, go ahead. I mean, we talked about everything from the TIF balances and so forth. Yeah, I'll let you just run with it.
So I think a few weeks ago, you guys had a meeting as far as what you would traditionally do based upon the final results of the audit and move money from your general fund balance account to your fund balance reserve account. So the number you guys were working on was $2.3 million that we gave Adam. It's actually a little shy of about $80,000 less for some TIF transfers that we did, and deferred tax revenue that we had to make an adjustment for. So we had to defer some of that, but regardless, the number, certainly is right where I told Adam where it was going to land. So sadly, we had to take a little bit away from you for tax collections. So on June 30, 2002, the town had a carryover balance of about almost $2,250,000. And that is about $1.2 million more than where you landed last year. And it's there because you guys transferred a significant amount of money last year out into your fund balance reserve account, and this math doesn't have it in it right now. So the best way I can say that is, as we finalize this product, I mean, if you guys have taken a vote, and I think it's 12% or over, that you guys have the discretion to move that money to the fund balance reserve, we can literally make that transfer for your 6/30/22 audit, because right now somebody's going, wow, our fund balance more than doubled. Well, it doubled because of. And a lot of the reasons why it doubled, I'll back up a minute. Where we like to see where that number is at is about 30, 60 to 90 days of your operating budget, not like TIFs and transfers and things like that. And that can be anywhere between 10 and $11 million, in Oxford terms. So a range of 800,000-ish for 30 days, a range of $1.6 million for 60 days, right in the middle, and then about $2.5 million at 90 days. And before you make any transfer into that fund balance reserve account, you're at almost $2.3 million, so I think that certainly that gives you some discretion, but I also think, what makes the town even more healthier is the $1.6 million you got sitting in your fund balance reserve account already prior to this transfer that you guys talked about, at your last meeting. So I would say that your fund balance is really somewhere around $4.8 million. It's just a function of, a detail on which column you have that math reside in, based upon your fund balance reserve policy, or your general fund balance. Right now, there's money to be transferred, and I think you guys took an action or are taking an action to move some of that money into that fund balance. So we can make that reservation on this product. So somebody says, wow, it doubled, what happened? You haven't made that transfers yet, you haven't settled up yet, which you've done. So largely, that's in part of your revenue projections coming way in overestimate. I mean, in 2000, you gotta remember, we're still coming out of a COVID year. In 2022, the casino money was like about $1.3 million, favorable to where it was from the year before. So then there were other revenue projections that were certainly much better than what you guys had estimated. That's the reason why your fund balance grew this year. Plus, Oxford's a pretty frugal town, and you were able to, to return unexpended money to reallocate to a future year back to back to your general fund surplus too. So all in all, that led to an increase of $1.2 million, into your fund balance account. So, in addition to that, your Route 26 TIF reserve account has about $1.2 million in it, and your Walmart reserve has about $114,000 in it. So, I think probably if you would say, and I think we've talked about this for the past few years, if there's one concern that we see as an outsider looking in, and I think we audit probably more than half of the municipalities in the state of Maine, that would be your enterprise fund or your wastewater department. So when you look at that, it's showing an operating deficit of about $1 million. And you just got a little more than $200,000 coming in at about $220. You did in 22. It grew from about 180 from the year before, 220 in 22. You got $220,000. That really isn't even enough to cover its operating expenses. Even when you back out depreciation, it's still not enough. So I think it's a hard time that you guys got to take a look at your rates. Certainly come up. I think that you're a unique town because you have a casino in this town, and there's some other things here with the TIFs. You've got a shopping center. Here literally Route 26 is Main Street. So you got some things that, for lack of a better word, that would, probably impact, a lot of this conversation. So I think it's probably, where I'm going, is to definitely look at your sewer rates though and see if there's some other options, and how you can, sort of make this thing self-supporting. Because in 2022, you guys spent about $90,000 of your own money supporting that sewer department. So, and I don't think that's sustainable. I really don't, not in this day and age. So that's probably the one, the one thing that I see as your outsider looking in, that if there's an area to focus on, that's it right there. So, and Adam and I have had a lot of conversations, regarding that, but, that would certainly be a topic of conversation for sure. I mean, what else? I mean, you guys refinanced some bonds in 21 that you kind of see like the residual of that, on this product here, but that's pretty much the highlights, where this audit landed, so.
So not to beat the dead horse with the sewer, and please clarify for me if I'm wrong, but, so the town raises and appropriates the, the funds to run the sewer department, and then we do account for the revenue on the other hand, but from what Ron's saying is that leaves us with about an $80,000 difference.
I actually, is $80,000 operational difference when you add in the debt service, and remember, your general fund, all your debt, including sewer, is backed by the good faith and credit of the town. And typically, you'll budget for all your debt service within your general fund, but make a transfer from your general fund because the debt service associated with the wastewater department lies in the wastewater department. So we actually transfer that piece out to cover that debt service, and then the debt service you got in your general fund is paid by your TIF districts. So that kind of mitigates itself. I think you might have been a little shy, with your TIF reserve accounts covering the debt service on those projects. If I have a number, $150,000-ish. Well, in addition to that, you were probably, when you add the debt service to the sewer, added to the $80,000 operational debt service, and I think you're probably $200,000 to $300,000 shy, you know, in your sewer to making all that math work over there.
But just to clarify though, we're raising and appropriating that money at
Correct.
town meeting.
Yep, correct.
It's just revenue-wise, we're
Yep, you're short,
Yeah.
you're short in
Yep.
operating revenue wise. So what's the moral of the story, what you just said? Your sewer's not self-sufficient, because taxpayer money is being used to subsidize it. And if you wanna get out of that, you got some decisions to make, and we'd love to help you. You know, we make a living off that, and, you know, and I think that that's the one that Adam and I have probably spent the past good year and a half talking about, you know, other options available to the town, but, you know, that's some big money. That's some big money. And you got a lot of infrastructure in there too, so,
Yeah, that depreciates.
yeah. So,
So what's your answer to that?
you're gonna have to rate, it's gonna be a buffet. Here's the good news. There's $2.5 billion coming into the state for the next, over the next 3 to 5 years, okay, in infrastructure. Designed exclusively for this, okay? So there's my answer to you. Get ready to start going out and getting some of that money. You know, and I think it's gonna have to be done with a combination of rates. And I think when you go solicit some more, you know, COVID money, you know, out there to, you know, when they pass that, Build Back America in November of 2021, this is what it was for, you know? And they did the same thing back in 2008 with the era stimulus money back then. They jump-started the economy by putting the money into not only the government's hands, but the vendors' hands, the contractors that were actually working on the jobs. Same thing's going on, you know, right here, right now. So there's ridiculous money coming your way. There's gonna be money coming from, whether it be the bond bank and the, you know, the special loan funds, the revolving loan funds that they have at 0% interest, grant money. There's my answer. You're gonna have some money available to you. I see that now. You know, I've been doing this for 32 years. That's an obvious thing. But I also think you're gonna have to do a combination of rates, because I think as you apply and stand in line for this money, they're gonna say, what'd you do about it? What'd you do about it? Well, we looked at our rates. You know, we hadn't raised them in forever, and, you know, we've done a lot of things. The town's gonna go through a revaluation, going through a revaluation. There's a lot of things we're doing in this town. There's your answers right there. And I think looking at rates.
Well, just get it for us.
What's that?
Sounds simple.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Your spare time, right?
You could not have picked a better time to try to find some funding for infrastructure. Couldn't have picked a better time. So, like I said, this wouldn't have been there 2 years ago. Before COVID, it wouldn't have been there. So, yeah, we've never seen anything like this. Nothing. So.
So,
Silicon Valley, here we go.
have no comment. I'm good if you're good.
I'm good if you guys all are. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay,
Thank
anytime.
you.
Any questions, follow up, just add them up. Everybody take care.
Yeah, when we get the final draft, we'll distribute those out.
Yeah, we'll do it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Have a great night.
Next item, 5.1, review the pending property tax foreclosures.
So actually, thanks to Wendy's diligence, it's just one property that is at that point. And that is, let's see, where did it go? Account number 1164, and it's at 4 Gary Lane, and it's at Megan Hildebrand, there you go. And it's total amount owed of $1,070. So that's the only one that's pending. Wendy and her folks were able to actually, there was several on there, but they were able to make some calls and get the rest of them all paid up and so forth. So that's the only thing we have heading to foreclosure. Usually the folks like to know about that stuff.
I'm assuming there's no mortgage on this.
Not that I'm aware of, no. The mobile home.
And are there occupants?
Currently, yes.
Currently, yes. And they have no means to pay, or?
No, and I gave her, she came in for
Assistance.
assistance. Unable to make it back for some reason. I haven't heard from her, gave her all the paperwork for everything that she needs to do to comply with the assistance, and I have not heard her.
So what's the
this for you.
Yep, so the foreclosure date is March 28th. Between now and the 28th, which is only obviously a few days away, the clerks are gonna continue to, try and make the efforts they can, make assistance available, to this person. But if we can't come to a conclusion, then, the foreclosure will go through. And I'll bring it back to you folks to see how we wanna move forward with that property after that.
Any questions?
You said it's occupied, is it owner occupied or?
Yes. Any other questions? Okay. You didn't want, there was no action.
No, it just, I thought you guys would like to be aware of the foreclosure, that's all.
Okay.
Yep.
Next item, 5.3, fiscal year 2023-2024 capital improvement plan continued.
All right, so this is somewhat timely with so the information that Ron just shared, literally some of that is new to me within hours as well. So, a couple of things that we presented the capital plan at the last selectmen's meeting, where we went over the different items and so forth. I don't know if the selectmen have any specific thoughts, but a couple of things that I really just want to throw out there that are somewhat important. I mean, all of the items on there are important, but one of the items is there's $60,000 for the replacement of a police vehicle, and the reason that I'm bringing that up specifically is that's something we need to put out to bid, and due to availability and so forth, the sooner that we can have that out and that money available, that would be helpful. Also, the GIS software for tax mapping and so forth, this $38,700. That's another one of those items that is kind of floating out there. We've got it's Patriot software, which is connected to the firm that we're using, KRT, the reval firm. They all kind of work together. I think GIS mapping would be a really good investment for us for a multitude of reasons. So I'm really hoping the board can give that some extra consideration as well. Also, the highway improvements for Whittemore Road, number 6 Road, and so forth. We talked a lot about that. The board, I felt like the board strongly told me you wanted to do the reclaim, not shim and overlay. I did talk to Rob through the engineer about that. So I did to go ahead and have him put these roads out to bid so that we can get some bids in and get in while the getting's good, if you will. Those will be due right before the next selectmen's meeting, so I can present what we got for bids. The way it's crafted is it's Whittemore and number 6 Road are both reclaimed like we discussed. I did include Pottle Road as well, because we talked about that, but that as a shim and overlay, because he felt pretty strongly Pottle is a shim and overlay material, candidate, I should say. So when we get this back, it's all a la carte. So if we only have enough money to do 1 road or 2 roads, then so be it. So as far as the rest of these capital items, I don't. I'll just be looking for the board to consider making the whichever transfers from the 9701 fund balance account into these individual capital accounts, if that's agreeable, or I can come back to you folks for each individual one when we're ready, or I guess I'm looking for a little direction from you folks on how you'd like to handle these.
Discussion.
Setting the roads aside, where's your most heartburn there?
So I mean, to be frank, Floyd, I didn't put a lot of wish listy things on here, though it may seem that way. I think, I do think it's important for us to save for that next fire truck. I think that's important because eventually we're gonna have to do something with that, at some point. Obviously, we've been in a good rotation for the police vehicles, getting into that one a year. GIS software, I push really hard for that just because I think it's going to provide really good service for the town, but also the town's people. And that can be used beyond just tax maps. That could be used for sewer lines, where hydrants are placed, all kinds of great stuff. I also, as you see, I've got a contingency in here of $20,000 for assessing. We have a contingency reserve account for, like if we have an overage of an employee leaves or something like that, and you have to pay their benefit, their vacation time or something. We haven't had time, meaning the board and the manager, to have a good conversation about that, what we're gonna do with the assessor's position. I feel if we can set aside some of this money in a contingency, that'll allow us to really study that position and decide, do we think we need a full-time person? Do we need a 32-hour-a-week person? How do we wanna handle that? Because both TIFs, the Route 26 and Walmart TIF, can help pay for an assessor. So, but before we can move forward, just need to know that there's going to be money there. Some of these other things that are over $10,000, I'm not going to hit on all of them. I know that the baler is one of them that Ed feels needs to be replaced. That's a $130,000 item, and I can go through all these if you want, but I feel that these are all important items. Obviously, there's two things: the stone cleaning and the wastewater treatment reserves. I see those as town meeting items. The $45,000 for wastewater treatment facility and $5,000 for the cemetery, because those are saving for the future anyway for stuff. So like I said at the last meeting, though, I'm not looking for permission necessarily except for a couple of these really, the little ones here, like the police vehicle and the GIS, and then roads at the next meeting. I'm just looking for the money to be set aside.
Well, I think you gotta have a police vehicle. I mean, it should be pretty much a no-brainer, right? I mean,
I'm sure he thinks so.
I think I do see it.
Is that the vehicle and to get it fully decked out? Because that sounds like an awful lot.
What was the figure that you had?
60,000.
That's the vehicle, let's not having it all decked out.
Well, that's a.
But yeah, I have 3 RFPs out, I got 1 back and it came in a little under 50 for it.
That's
And I
for a
put them
pickup
out
truck,
last year as suggested.
We just bought a pickup truck for $37,000, and it didn't go to bid, just saying they called because we've been buying vehicles from them, and they said, hey, we've got an extra one. I think somebody canceled. We got lucky, but 60 sounds way too high for, we're not paying $60,000.
Is this a car or a pickup?
Pickup.
So what kind of pickup, Ricky?
The only RFP I got back was on a Ford out of court.
Oh, I just meant it's a regular pickup. Right?
The Ford one, yeah.
Because one of the thoughts I had was we could continue, it'd be great to get into the cycle of recycling what we get over there. Run it as a police vehicle for X number of years, and then it can be used over here, or it can be used at the rec center, it can be used they maintain their value and last. So look at what we got out of this code one,
But you put it up to bid and you only got one person
I
in?
put 3 out, and last week I went and checked on one of the other places I put the RFP out, and they said, we didn't return it because we can't tell you if we can get one or not.
So I have a question. We don't have a pickup now for the police department, right?
We do not.
So can you tell me why you want a pickup and what that pickup is used for, rather than a cruiser?
Other than a cruiser?
Or SUV?
Like when we qualified, it helped us haul all of our equipment up there, instead of people using their personal vehicles to do it. Plus for traffic cones, for like the fair, when we have run the 250, things like that, haul equipment back and forth.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions on this list?
I guess I'm okay with setting aside those that the manager would like, as far as.
I would be also on the pickup and the GIS software for now. And then next week, you said you'll have the bids on the roads.
They close the Tuesday before the next meeting. I can't
Okay.
remember the date.
The next selectmen's meeting.
Yeah, the beginning of April. Yeah.
Was that a motion, John?
Yeah.
I second
All those in favor? Thank you.
So I'll bring those roads to you guys then.
5.4, transfer station fee update for large tree disposal cost.
This was Ed that was
So when I had the guy come in and chip this last time, we had all kinds of oversized, big trunk trees and piece of wood that wouldn't fit through the chipper. And he hauls in what they call a shredder, and he chips it all up and then throws it away. And it goes into our recycling part of it, but he charges extra for that, which I didn't know till after he'd done it. And we got a bill for $1,200. So I'd like to be able to these guys that bring in these oversized trees over 20 inches in diameter, charge them a fee. Dr. Ryan Kane, all them, they all agree with it. They just want to get rid of it. So I don't know if we can come up with some type of fee. I figure maybe like $100 a truckload. We only have this guy come in every 2 years for the big logs, so we should make enough money that goes back into the general fund to cover this, or make a reserve account for that money. I'm not sure how you want to do it.
Do you have enough room to hold all of these?
We do.
2 years?
There was enough down there from 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was time for it to go away, and he likes to see it go away, so I got rid of
So
it.
you're gonna do it just for someone that comes in with stuff over 20 inches, Ed, or are you talking?
Right, the regular brush and all that's free.
They
This
stay the way it is.
this is just the big trees.
Sounds reasonable.
You know, they need to pay the difference of what it costs us to get rid of them, you know, and we'll take them from them.
You'd mentioned like $5 a ton.
Yeah,
Is that,
I mean, I think that was a pretty good fee, $5 a ton, and they all agreed with it. They was fine with it.
I don't have any argument with it.
I don't either.
And just the other update, you know, we put the fees in as far as November 1st. We've had no complaints. Everybody's paid, except the mattresses. We put $5 on them, and Almighty put 10 on them. So we're still losing $5 every time a mattress goes out the door, but at least it's covering some of it. And the other update, I done my recycling, 2-year recycling report. We're at 52% recycling. State likes 50, so we're doing good. We're on key.
So does someone want to make a motion to increase to $5 per ton on that?
On oversized.
On oversized?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, department head reports.
given the budget thing?
Okay. Town manager reports, number 8.
I figured you guys probably heard me talk enough this evening, so,
Okay, selectmen items. Anything from the selectmen that you would like to bring up?
If you could ever remember it.
Do you know if Kingston ever met with, place on 26 Craftsman Speedway that we talked about, the LED sign?
The neon light.
Yeah, because it's back, I thought it brightness went down for a little bit, but I see it's right back up to,
Get your sunglasses on.
yeah.
yeah, I understood that he did talk to them, and I thought the problem was corrected, but now it's not again.
It's right back up to full brightness again, so.
Why don't I follow up?
That's before that.
Yeah. No, because I'd actually been driven by there at night and noticed it had been dim, but not as of recent.
Well, I thought it was, and then I thought maybe just
A
old
lot
age.
depends on what they have on the sign, that white
The
background.
white background is really white.
I'll touch base with them.
Other items?
Thank you.
And again, I know Dana brought it up last meeting, but I think the highway crew using the salt has been very good for our roads because they seem to be They're a lot faster.
I agree.
So, I'm all in favor of paying a little bit more to use the salt.
Yeah, they've done a good job this winter.
Speaking of roads, I mean, I realize we didn't get any real say over it, but has the state said anything about 121? Because from the corner up there by Maine to, you know, the leach fields, it's a little rough there. I mean, it's getting rough. It's getting right down where you like count up the road going towards my place, Woodmore Road.
I don't have any information on
Well, let
Okay,
me
well, no,
jump
I
in.
just didn't know if the state ever's got any plan on maybe doing a little update work there.
Right in front of Polly's is a big dip in the.
Oh, she's got
That's
some ski jumps there.
That's rough.
Well, there was a big hole there the other day when I.
Yeah, it was, I called them about it.
I mean, it just seems like that's getting,
They wouldn't put bulk signs on there.
We should get our state representative on that.
yeah, we could ask us. Well, he's on.
They might be able to tell you when the next scheduled,
It hasn't been that long, because that was that P
that
and,
section might be too.
was that P and J paving that, remember when I was on the board, they come and skim coated that whole thing?
Yeah.
We didn't know
That's
who we didn't know who
usually
P and J was.
Yeah, it's usually on a maintenance schedule, so.
I mean, that could have been more than 5 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
While we're checking with that, can you see where Route 26 is on their schedule?
That was good.
I thought they just did a,
No.
I think it was a
They need to
shim
They
overlay.
did a half of a shim overlay.
Shim overlay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We're talking the full reconstruction. That's what we're talking.
I can do that.
Appreciate it.
Is that it? Okay. Sign warrants, 74, 5, 6, and 77.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Ed. Great conversation you guys have with your local state representative.
I was gonna suggest you call Senator Rick Bennett. See if you can get him on the phone, just drop that in.
I was a little worried about you, Lois. I hadn't seen you for a couple of weeks.
Cold only and snow.
Muddy driveway.
You put them things down, you see it.
If I hold it just right, it's perfect.
No, it's getting a reflection on it.
Okay, I remembered.
Make motion to sign 74, 75, 76, 77.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. 11, executive session, to enter executive session to discuss a legal matter pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Section 405, 680.
So,
All those in favor? Thank you.
Carry on.
you'll be white out one.